Welcome to a good session. I'm flanked by two eminent fast bowlers. I mean, Glenn doesn't need any more introductions. He's a legend. And we have Bharat Arun. I mean, I personally know him for many, many years. He and probably T.A. Shaker should have played much more for India in the 80s. But, that's how the dice rolls. And I'm K.C. Vijaykumar, the sports director of The Hindu, the host for the session. And I got to confess, I'm a failed fast bowler, wrong-footed at that, in the delivery stride, with middling success in schools and a spectacular failure in the college level. So I appreciate the two gentlemen to my right much, much more, because I know how hard fast bowling is, to run in and day out and bowl. I always believe that fast bowling and wicket keeping doesn't get the credit it deserves, because we get obsessed with wristy batsmen, we get obsessed with wily spinners, and we take these two significant roles for granted. So gentlemen, let's get moving, and since it's two fast bowlers and probably a fraud wannabe, let's say right arm over, and let's get into our spells. So we're talking about high performance centers and promoting excellence in sport. Glenn is with MRF, and he stepped into the massive shoes of the great Dennis Lilly. Bharat has been in many academies. He had played a significant role in the NCA and with the Indian team as a fast bowling coach. And many of us of a certain generation, have seen the West Indian fast bowlers. We had seen Lilly, Thompson, we had seen Bob Willis, Ian Botham, And we only had a few unique Indian fast bowlers like Kapil or Zahir. And now to have a pack of fast bowlers, I think a lot of credit belongs to Arun, and I think he deserves a round of applause. So, Glenn, I would start with you. When you talk about academies or high performance centers, there's almost a perception that you send a player there, a bowler there, and then he comes out as a finished product. The pressure is intense. It's as if it happens overnight. It's as if it's a 2-minute noodles. How do you look at that, and what does an academy actually do?
Firstly, thank you for having me along here today. I do look at India, or Chennai especially, as my second home. I spend so much time here, so it is great to be here. But I guess I've been involved in sort of cricket academies, firstly from a player's perspective, and now for the last 10 years with MRF Pace Foundation, so from a coaching perspective. And it is quite interesting. As a player, for me, the biggest thing was you learn what it means to be a professional cricketer. Before I got selected to go down to the Cricket Academy in Australia, I was playing cricket on a Saturday afternoon. And I played because I loved it. I never had any formal coaching growing up, and I just played, like I said, because I loved it. All of a sudden, I started to go up through the grades back in Australia, and I got selected to attend the Australian Institute of Sport Cricket Academy, which was, the head coach was Rod Marsh. And all of a sudden, I went from playing on a Saturday afternoon to learning what it meant to be a professional cricketer. You live, breathe, eat, sleep cricket 24/7. The preparation, the routines, the planning, then what it takes to be a fast bowler. And I've always said there's 3 things to make a fast bowler. 1, you've got to have the skill. 2, you've got to be fit and strong enough to put up with the challenges of bowling fast all day. And 3, and probably the most important thing, is attitude. And what you're prepared to do, your discipline, your resilience, your mental strength, that side of things. And all of a sudden, I'm working with coaches like Rod Marsh, Dennis Lilly, and then you're working out, all of a sudden you're working in the gym, you're working out strength, what you need to get through the being a fast bowler. You start learning about the other aspects of the game, nutrition, and then bowling, and then the preparation that goes into it, the match, the awareness, the planning, all these things that you didn't really put much thought into. Okay. And I think from that moment on, for me as a player, it helped me go to the next level. And I think being involved in a cricket academy, the thing I loved in Australia was we came in for a 3, 4, 5 month period, and we all worked together very similar to what we do at the MRF Pace Foundation. I quite enjoyed that. So to me, it's about identifying talent and then providing the environment to enhance that person, whether it's a male or female, to improve their skill level, to improve their fitness and strength, and to improve their mental strength. And to me, it comes down to the individual, the attitude, what they're prepared to do. But if you provide an environment for that person to learn and to improve, that's what it's about. And that's what we did in Australia. That's what we try to do here in India. And it's about having the right people around you, the coaches, the support staff, everyone there to allow that individual to improve. Firstly, as a person and also as a cricketer. And if you do that, then to me, that's what it's all about.
So I got to share this anecdote. I mean, it's specific to Glenn. India toured Australia 1999-2000. Pretty bad series. Lost all the tests. And then they returned back. And then Rahul Dravid had come for the Karnataka Nets at Bangalore Chinnaswamy Stadium. And then he walked in, and Karnataka was training. And Arun, the Karnataka opener, and a good friend of Rahul. I mean, he calls him like your pigeon. Rahul is Jammy for them. So they call him, Jammy, what happened? So he was saying, no, I was just playing and trying to get my eye in, and all of us were doing that. So it's Glenn and the others, and they're just consistently in that particular zone. And you play about 30 deliveries, and you think you're settled, your eye is in, and you're all set for a big knock. And then you get that one on and off stump. You think you can play it, you think you have lined it, and the edge is taken. And then he said this, he said, against Glenn, you're never in. You never feel you're settled in. That was a phenomenal insight he gave. So how did you, as a player, achieve that precision? And is it something you also inculcate among your trainees here at the MRF Pace Foundation?
Yes, it is. I try to sort of pass on to the young boys that we work with, young adults that we work with at the MRF Pace Foundation, is to get to know yourself really well. And there was a few things that I think held me in good stead. One was I knew myself really well. I liked who I was as a person, which helps. And I knew my game very well. Okay. And early on in my career, I worked out why I had a good game and why I had a bad game, and the difference between the two. And once I worked that out, then I could put in place why I had a good game. I put that in place. And to me, when I had a good game, all I was thinking about was where I wanted to bowl that ball. Okay. Looking to execute that ball as perfectly as I could. Yeah. When I had a bad game, all I was thinking about was how I was going to bowl the ball. And then I soon realised that I haven't forgotten how to bowl overnight. If I want to work on something, I'll work on that in the nets. Okay. And I'll just focus on what I want to bowl in the game. And so when I wasn't feeling very good, wasn't coming out very well, I thought, okay, get back to just bowling that area I want to bowl, get it through, carrying it through to the wicket keeper. And if I did that ball after ball, then my confidence grew and I got back into a bit of rhythm. So I think it's those things, getting to know yourself well. And also, one thing I pass on to the young guys is the best strike rate in world cricket is 42. It's Dale Steyn, Waqar Younis, those guys. That's one wicket every 42 deliveries. So why do bowlers try to get a wicket every over, or two balls every over? It's never happened in the history of the game. So it's about building pressure, being consistent. And for me personally, I couldn't see why I would bowl a ball where the batsman wanted it. So it's about control, bowling where you want to bowl, and if you've got that, you can set aggressive fields, and if the batsman makes a mistake, you've got the catches there. So one, it's about having a plan. Two, it's about knowing yourself, and then just having a very simple process that works. And so I just try to pass that on to the boys. That's what held me in good stead, along with believing in myself, being prepared to work hard, never satisfied, so always looking to improve, and enjoying every minute. So I think if you've got those four qualities, that self-belief, work ethic, never satisfied, and enjoy every minute, then you're well on your way to being successful. So that's just a few little things that help me that I try to pass on as well.
Arun, this question is for you specifically. You've seen the NCA, the National Cricket Academy in Bangalore, evolved from the time the late Raj Singh Dungapu planned it, and Vasu Paranjpe, Hanuman Singh. Rodney Marsh was a consultant. I mean, he did yeoman service at NCA, and you've been there. I mean, you did your levels, certifications there, and then you also worked in the NCA. You worked with the India A, the India Under 19, eventually the national team. How has the academy evolved in your perspective?
I think the National Cricket Academy has been a great, that's probably the only high performance center that the country has. And like we mentioned earlier, I think every state should be having their own high performance academy and spreading into your various districts. I think NCA has imbibed the latest training methodologies that support a fast bowler, and like Glenn was mentioning, it's about enhancing the quality of the bowlers that you get. Yes, he was talking about the attributes and the qualities required to be a good fast bowler. I think it's extremely important that coaches understand what it takes to be a good fast bowler, and also using the latest technology to anything that could improve the levels of a fast bowler. We're talking about fitness, we're talking about the attributes of a fast bowler and the skill sets of a fast bowler. Okay. And we strongly believe that as coaches, you don't coach the sport, you coach the person.
Okay.
So it's all about attitude, and at NCA you're going to get the cream of the fast bowlers in the country. And so what kind of systems you have to make sure that these fast bowlers become better when they leave the NCA. You give them good programs,
okay.
And I think the key to any fast bowler or any bowler developing is empowerment.
Okay.
And if you empower them with the knowledge, and if you empower them with things that they are capable of doing, and the areas they need to work on to get better, this would go a long way in adding value to any bowler who comes to the academy. And I think the NCA has done a commendable job in this aspect.
Like, as a follow-up to the earlier question, I mean, there was a time a few years back when the NCA was also seen as... Okay.
It's got to be closed.
So the NCA was also seen as this, rehabilitation center where cricketers get injured and then they get back. So there was all this confusion about, is it a conveyor belt of talent, finishing talent and then throwing up for Indian cricket? Or is it something like a hospital bed where players get injured and they go for rehab? So there was a bit of a confusion in terms of perspective vis-a-vis our NCA. I mean, has it settled down? I mean, what exactly does the NCA do in the way you see it?
I think it's kind of settled down. It was, even though it was termed as a rehabilitation center, but it was also a school where young fast bowlers used to compete, and it was more of a finishing product. So I think it's a bit of both. You can't just, you need a center where your injured bowlers are taken care of, they are given sufficient work to put them back on the track. And also, it should serve as a center for young fast bowlers, aspiring fast bowlers, to act as a center where you bring something to the table to enhance their skill sets. So ideally, it should be an interdisciplinary issue where everyone, it's got to be a sports science unit, sports research, it's got to be a sports psychology, and all these factors are extremely important to make a high performance center. And I think in India right now, NCA is probably the only high performance center that's going on, and we need to have more such centers to cater to the length and breadth of this country, because now you have fast bowlers coming in from different sections and remote areas in the country. So we need to identify the talent, catch them young, and give them the best inputs so that they can further their talent and abilities.
Glenn, I mean, I think it's a question common to both you and Arun. When a player, a batsman comes to NCA or a fast bowler comes to MRF, there's a lot of expectation. There's also a bit of hype that gets in. I remember when Munaf Patel broke through the international scene, Dennis Lilly said something about his speeds, his consistent speeds, and there was this huge hype that Munaf is probably the fastest bowler India has produced. He probably could be on par with Shoaib Akhtar and Brett Lee. And there was a camp at Bangalore, a preparatory camp, and a lot of media attention, and there's a lot of pressure. So how do you both, as individual coaches, kind of train your wards to cope with that? Because there is an expectation, okay, you're at MRF Basic Foundation, therefore you must be really, really good. And there's a lot of more scrutiny on them compared to someone else who's not in the academy or in the foundation.
I guess the main difference between MRF Pace Foundation and NCA, we get the boys a lot younger.
Yeah.
And then, so we, nurture them, identify talent, do what we can. And then if they go back and they play for their states and they're improving and then they go to NCA, we see that as a big win as well because, I have the NCA held in very high regard. But it's about not only teaching the boys about cricket skills, it's also about teaching them about themselves as well. And part of that mental improvement or mental strength is handling pressure and pressure situations. And we try to give them the tools to put them in pressure situations at training, in match scenarios, things like that, so they can start thinking for themselves. So they've been there before, they've done that. Then there's also, you can start looking at media training, public speaking, things like that. But one thing I talk about is handling pressure. And to me, pressure is something that affects everyone differently. I always feel the only person that could put pressure on me is me.
Okay.
And so I try to get the boys to look at it from that way and then give them the tools. To me, in those pressure situations, I try to break it down to the most simplest form. What is the very next thing I have to do to achieve what I want? Okay. In a match situation, when it gets down to the last few overs, it's getting tight, it's getting close, the scoreboard's there, the crowd. The most important thing is the very next ball I bowl. Yeah. And I focus everything on that. I don't worry about the result. It's about the process, not the product. So if you can get people to think about what is the very next thing I have to do, if I do that as well as I can, good, then I'll do the next thing. And then that starts relieving pressure. But there's also preparation. As long as they put the preparation in, when they walk on the field or when they walk into another situation, they're confident that they deserve to be there, they belong to be there. So it's all these little, I think, things that you learn along the way. And as I said, it's not about only improving them as a cricketer, it's also improving them as a young human, young adult as well. And I think if you do that, then they handle those situations quite comfortably in the end.
How do you look at it, Arun?
See, I very well agree with what he's been saying. We look at an overall improvement and things like that. And the first question that you asked, India always had fast bowlers. Yeah. They could boast of Munaf Patel, Zahir Khan, Ashish Nehra, Irfan Pathan. All of them started to be, bowl 140 plus when they came on the scene. But gradually over a period of time, you found that they dropped their pace. And there was a probably reason for that. I thought we at the NCA, as I told you earlier, NCA is a place where it's not just the coaches alone. There's strength and conditioning, the physiotherapists, the sports psychologists, and as he was talking about the overall improvement in the attitude of the boys so that they are more confident. So we came to the conclusion that the boys, the fast bowlers weren't managed well. Yeah. Their workloads were not monitored. And so we set about, having standards for the Indian fast bowlers with the kind of workloads that are advised, and also that their entire workload in the nets, in the match, everything was monitored, and they were given programs specifically. And we found that they could sustain their pace over a longer period of time. And also the incidence of injuries were a lot lesser. Because I think fast bowling runs the inherent risk of injuries because it's a sport with highly strenuous activity. And I think there is always a chance of injuries occurring, but if their workloads are managed well, the incidence of injuries happening are lesser. Or I could put it another way, that even if a fast bowler is injured, he gets back into competition a lot faster than someone who's not as fit as him.
Glenn, as an aside, there's this anecdote about Sachin Tendulkar landing at MRF Pace Foundation as a young lad, trying to be a fast bowler, and Mr. Lilly told him that, you better look at yourself as a batsman or whatever, and send him back home. Considering the number of duels you had with him on the cricketing field, in retrospect, do you think, it would have been better for you if Lilly had told him, okay, you train as a fast bowler?
Well, I think that goes to show that everyone wants to be a fast bowler, don't they? So even Sachin wanted to be a fast bowler. But yeah, so it's just about anyone can be a fast bowler to a degree. As we've said here today, you've got to be a lot stronger, a lot fitter. You put a lot more stress on your body than, say, the spinners and the batsmen. So it's just, but there's something that is unique about a fast bowler, is the pace. Someone who can bowl 145, 150 kilometres an hour, that is something that's unique. There's a lot of talk where bowlers, they go, oh, we have to slow down to get control. And I don't like that at all. It's about bowling at your top pace, because you can't teach someone to bowl 100 mile an hour if they only bowl 130 kilometres an hour. You can improve their pace, you can enhance it. So I like seeing bowlers work harder to get control while bowling at their top pace. So it is an interesting one. They've got to have the workload. So it's finding that right balance. I know we manage workloads a lot. When I first started playing, workloads weren't managed. You bowled in the nets, sometimes you bowled for a fair bit. And in matches, you bowled and you kept playing, and it was like the fast bowler kept bowling until he broke, and then someone else got another go. And in that sense, sometimes I think we've lost that, working at 99% every game. Like the only thing that's important is how I play in this match and what I achieve in this match. And then compared to, okay, we've got to manage this workload. We've just got to find it right, because the nature of the beast is, it is a tough sport. It is a tough part of the sport where injuries can happen, but we do want the best out of our best bowlers. And so it's about managing that as well. But yeah, it's if I had my time again, I'd be a fast bowler. They say batsmen, they get all the glory. We had a little saying where batsmen, they're always looking for recognition, aren't they? They get 50, what do? They raise a bat. They get to 100, raise a bat. 150, they raise a bat. When they walk off the field, they're raising the bat. They get recognition all the time. The bowlers, especially the fast bowlers, what recognition do they get? If you get fifer, if you get 6, 8, if you get all 10 wickets, as you walk off the field, you just, quick thank you, and off you go. So there's not much recognition for the bowlers. So we came up with a theory one day. It was on an Ashes tour in 01, where if a bowler gets 5 wickets in a match, we're going to get the ball, we're going to raise the ball to the crowd and get a little bit of acknowledgement. And I was lucky enough, I picked up a fifer at the first test on that series at Lords. So I got the ball off the umpire, raised it to the crowd like this. All my fast bowling teammates are standing around clapping, and the batsmen, well, they didn't know what was happening, did they? So, but it was nice to get that little bit of acknowledgement. But it is an amazing part of the game. To me, a bowler controls the game. The batsman can't play a shot until the bowler bowls the ball. And so all these little intricacies, little parts in the game is what I love. But I don't like seeing bowlers go out there and just sort of slowing down, or they just, I only have to do this much to get through this game so that I can play this game. I like seeing players perform at their best, at their peak every game, whether it's your fast bowler, spin bowler, batsman. I want them to see them pushing themselves to the limit, and that's where they find out how good they are and what they can actually achieve. And to me, being a coach, the best thing I can do for that player is to allow them to walk on the field and play without fear. If we can get all our players to that stage, then we've been incredibly successful. So, yeah, there's a lot to go in. You know, I think Sachin did go. I think he did bowl seam up and try to bowl quick in a few Test matches, and for India as well. He never gave it away. But as Dennis Lilly rightly said, you know, I think you should concentrate on your batting, and you know, he was definitely one of the legends of the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's this concept called nature and nurture. I mean, William Shakespeare's play The Tempest dealt with those tropes, where you're born with a few traits and then you imbibe a few traits. I would probably ask Arun to explain this in terms of, you have a Bumrah who's got those traits, you know, probably inborn, just walks a few steps, then runs just a few steps, and then puts so much enormous pressure on the shoulder and his back to generate that kind of pace. Now, as a coach, you know, and you coached him with the Indian team and even the NCA, I mean, would you accept that as his natural strength and let it be, or would you try to tinker with it? How do you go about it? Or like a Lasith Malinga with a slingy action, I mean.
I think if you look at the 20 best fast bowlers around the world, no one's even remotely similar. Everyone's very unique. So I think fast bowling skill is like, I always give this analogy, it's like a handwriting. The way you write a A, B or a C does not change, but everyone's style of writing is different.
Okay.
If you, without changing your style, if you can work on your handwriting, you get better. So I think even fast bowling is very similar to that. Sometimes just not coaching is the best answer to enhance a fast bowler. When Bumrah came in, I knew Bumrah much before he came into the Indian team, when he was with the NCA. We tried tweaking his action a little bit, then found that it was of absolutely no use.
Okay.
He could deliver the ball fast with his action, which his run-up was unique, his action was unique, and his bowling was unique too. So, but it was effective. So that's when all of us got together, the strength and conditioning, the coach, the physiotherapist, and as you rightly pointed out, he was putting himself in a lot of pressure physically. So we made a conscious effort that if Bumrah needs to carry on the way he does, he needs to work extra on his fitness.
Okay.
So he had to make a few sacrifices. He was someone who really wanted, he loved, you know, fast food and all the things that
Junk
you
food.
shouldn't be eating. So he consciously made an effort. He sacrificed, he ate well. He got hold of a good sports nutritionist. I think even this is one aspect which a high-performance center should have.
Okay.
So he made a lot of sacrifices. He worked very hard on his physique, and the result is there for everyone to see.
Could you say something about Shami? I mean, he went through a personal crisis, then he kind of gained weight. There was talk about his dietary issues. How did you work on Shami?
See, again, as I mentioned earlier, you coach you don't coach the sport. You just coach the person, because sport is just a medium, you know, which you use to coach. I remember an incident when Shami was going through his personal problems. His physical fitness was at the lowest ebb, and we were about to go on a tour of England. So Shami had failed the fitness test. He walked up to Ravi and me and he said he's very, very angry with life and he wants to give up the sport. So both of us sat him down. We said anger is the best thing that can ever happen to a fast bowler. So if you can channelize your anger and use that anger to get a lot fitter, you do wonders for yourself. So we sent him to the National Cricket Academy, where he was there for a month. He trained exceptionally hard, like a maniac bull. I remember him calling me in England and saying, now I'm as strong as a horse and I'm ready to take on the world. And the rest is history. Glenn was mentioning about being consistent. I think I've used his example many times with the Indian bowlers, saying because they used to bowl a few good balls, and then get a little greedy because you've set up a batsman and then go for runs. So I used him as an example, and I said, this is something which, consistency is the key to performing. And even though we had the great skill sets as bowlers, we lacked the consistency earlier, and they were challenged with their consistency right from the nets. And that's how they came up to be a fearsome unit in the future.
Glenn, could you say something about the way MRF has backed fast bowling in India? I mean, when they did the Pace Foundation and based it in Chennai, it was Madras then, India was known as this country for great batting, wristy shots, wily spinners. Of course, you had a few other bowlers, but it was known mostly for its batting and spinners. And then to kind of go out of the box, it's one thing to say, the tires we raise are the tires you buy, and that was their famous ad campaign then, but they're selling a product. But to launch a fast bowling academy, it's absolutely altruistic and looking ahead, and to get into this field, and then to last this distance, and to have Dennis Lilly coming in and coaching, the bowlers, and then now you're taken charge, Senthil is here. I mean, how crucial it is to have a corporate back a sport the way it is.
Oh, incredibly important. And I think if you look across all sporting teams, not just in cricket, you need the corporate backing to be able to achieve what you want. And you think of the vision that they had back in, August 1987, when the late Ravi Marman and K.M. Marman decided to set up the MRF Pace Foundation. They wanted to get the best, at that time, the best fast bowler in the world, and that was Dennis Lilly. He had retired, obviously, but to me, Dennis was my hero growing up, and to me, he's still one of the best, if not the best, fast bowling coach in the world. He just knew the game so well. He could look at a bowler and see where he could help them improve straight away, just so quickly. But to have that vision back then, especially when India was known for spinners and batsmen, and not so much for the fast bowlers, and that's when they first started. And you think of I think there's been 24 bowlers that have come through the MRF Pace Foundation that have gone on and played for the country. Guys like Javagal Srinath, Venkatesh Prasad, Sahir Khan, Afar Patan. The last probably few would be Avesh Khan and Prasidh Krishna. So to see those guys come through, and I think that's been incredible. And for what MRF have given to cricket in this country, but also around the world, because they're big supporters of the world tournaments as well. So they've got the passion for cricket, they've got the passion for India, and you can convert it into something very special. MRF Pace Foundation, led by Senthil at the moment, who I think is one of the best fast bowling coaches I've seen. It's also about having the right people around you to be able to achieve, and then to provide the support. When I retired from cricket, I didn't want to get into coaching. And I got the call from Dennis saying he was thinking about hanging the boots up. Would I come over and take over from him? And my first thought was no, because it's not something I wanted to do. And I didn't know how I could help someone or teach someone how to bowl fast. What I did just came naturally to me. So I came over. Dennis convinced me, along with my wife convinced me as well, to come over and check it out. And I came over for a camp. I think it was might have been the last camp, around about September 2011, and worked with Dennis for that 2 weeks. And I just saw how they went about it, how the coaches went about it, the facilities that were involved here, and just it was all about how to improve this young person. And then it was totally backed by MRF as well. So I saw something that I thought was pretty amazing, and I wanted to be part of. And I felt that we could make a difference, and we had the support of MRF, and then that would help us make that difference. And I think that's very important. If MRF were there just in name and didn't support the way they did, then it wouldn't be successful. As we heard Mr. Srinivasan with Chennai Super Kings, it's all about culture, and culture starts at the top. And then it's about being inclusive and bringing people together. And if you can do that, then you set a pretty good sort of foundation to work from. And here we are now, 35 years later. I think the MRF Pace Foundation has a really good name, not only within Chennai, but within India and also around the world. To think how many other countries, there's been England, Australia, New Zealand, West Indies, Sri Lanka, have sent young bowlers over to work over here as well. So I think that is held in pretty high regard. But because of the vision that Ravi and KM Marman had, supported by their company MRF, have created something very special and continuing to. So, yeah, corporate sponsorship and corporate backing is very important. We couldn't do what we do without that.
Arun, now NCA is probably going to shift in a few years to a bigger campus outskirts of Bangalore. How do you look at that development in terms of, I mean, they were scouting all over the city and then now they've found a place and they want to shift base. I mean, would that help, or in terms of logistics, in terms of, quality infrastructure?
I think shifting into a bigger place gives you an opportunity to for the kids to come and have a great time. You could provide different sports.
Yeah.
NCA is just not about cricket. I was talking about overall development of young fast bowlers or any cricketer who comes to the academy. And I think playing different sport, mostly under 16s and under 19s come to NCA. You have the space. You have the opportunity to have different facilities for different sport. I think the cross-sport training does help. Also, overall development of the players who come to NCA is a lot more possible when you move into a bigger place. You could have that as a residential academy. I think it augurs very well for India.
Okay. Now, a common question to both of you gentlemen. I mean, as coaches, what has probably been the most fulfilling moment in your lives? Glenn, you first.
As I said, coaching was not something I wanted to get into, but it's been amazing since I've been here. I've been with MRF Pace Foundation now for 10 years, and what I've learnt about fast bowling, I wish I knew when I was playing.
Okay.
I could have fixed my action up and probably got a little bit more out of it, maybe taken a few more wickets.
But you got 563 in tests. It's quite a number.
But you never stop learning. But to then be able to, it's different being a player where you become a bit sort of individually focused and team orientated. Whereas being a coach, you do what you can, but as soon as they walk on the field, you've got no control, and it's a tough place to be. So to watch young players that you've had, tried to help or imparted a certain amount of knowledge or help them in see them go out in the middle and perform well, to me is what it's all about. To see some of our young boys going on, we've got Prasid Krishna and Avish Khan in the UK at the moment, to see them go out and perform and do well is what it's all about. Coaching is not about the coach, it's about the player.
Okay.
And they always say, you always know a good coach because he's never in the media. The only time you see the coach is when the team's playing badly or things are going badly. Yeah. When things are going well, you see the players.
Yes.
And that's what you want to see. So to me, to see the players go out, perform, back themselves, play without fear, and then achieve what they want, to me, that's the ultimate.
Yeah. Arun?
I was always extremely passionate about coaching, and when I did start off, I think no matter where you coach, you could always bring something to the table. As he rightly said, it's about the player. It's not about the coach. Because there was one quote that really I set my coaching principles on. It says, good coaches expect the players to think about them, but great coaches help a player to think highly of themselves.
Okay.
So this has been my coaching philosophy, and I was lucky enough I always wanted to coach India, but then it seemed a very distant dream when I started off. But ultimately when I did, it was probably a great feeling.
I believe Ravi insisted you have to be the bowling coach.
Yes, he did call me once from England when I was driving. And he said, would you like to be the coach of the Indian team? Who would ever refuse such an opportunity? I said, yes. I stopped the car aside and I said, yes, now we can talk. So this was the first time when I took over in 2014.
Yeah.
And when we came back, we had a year's gap when Anil Kumble was the coach.
Yeah.
And then when we did get back, that was when he insisted that he wanted me as the bowling coach. So it was a dream come true for me.
Yeah. Glenn, I think this probably I'm asking not just for myself, but for the entire gathering here. You got Sachin LBW striking him on the shoulder with a bouncer that didn't climb much. Was it LBW? What do you think?
I'm trying to remember that one. Yes.
I think Steve Buckner gave it out.
Yeah, so I've had quite a few chats with Sachin about this one. It was an attempted bouncer that just didn't bounce.
He just crouched
and he went to duck it. And
he got hit here. Yeah.
Sachin's not very tall. He's only like this tall. So when he ducked down, where it hit him in the shoulder.
Yeah.
But from where I was looking, I could see the stumps. I could see the bails over the top, and I just thought that's out. If he was standing normally, would have hit him in the pad.
Okay.
But because it just didn't bounce, so I appeal. Steve Buckner gives it out. So I still think that was out. Sachin still thinks that was going over the stumps by a good foot. So we have a discussion or a disagreement about that every time we catch up. But I still think that's out. That's hitting middle stump, about sort of a couple inches from the top, whereas Sachin said it's clearly going over the top.
Thanks for the clarification. I'll just throw the floor open for a few questions. Please raise your hand. Colonel, as always.
Good morning, Glenn. Thank you very much, first of all, for your contribution to Indian sport. You mentioned about injuries, for a fast bowler, and Arun also said that it's very common. But you personally, I think, except for the freak injury in 2005 when your ankle twisted, you never had injuries. So what was your work ethic, and how did you keep yourself fit, and how are you transferring that knowledge to the young boys who are training under you?
Yeah, so I did have a few injuries early on in my career, and sort of the big turning point for me was I went on the West Indies tour in 1995. It was the first time I cemented my place in the team. I picked up my first fifer on that tour, first man of the match on that tour, and I felt like I contributed to the team. And it was an important moment. I came back from that tour. The team, we won in the West Indies there for the first time in a long, long time, but I was injured. I'd torn my intercostal side muscle, or as we call it, a grunt muscle for a fast bowler. That's where we get our power from. So I was injured, and I weighed 77 kilos. So there wasn't much of me. So that's, I'd hate to say, nearly 30 kilos less than I am now. So there was nothing of me, and I knew if I kept doing what I'd previously been doing, I wasn't going to have much longevity in the game. So I asked around about, I needed to get a trainer to work with, and this one name kept popping up, a guy called Kev Chevelle. So I went and met him, and the first question he asked me was, what are you prepared to do? And I said, I'd do whatever it took. Whatever it takes, I'm prepared to do. He said, perfect, that's the attitude I want. So I worked with him, and his attitude was to train me to be unbreakable, to be able to cope with the stresses of fast bowling day in, day out, and be able to get through it quite comfortably. So, and I must say, he achieved that easily. I used to look forward to the season starting, to come over here and play 3 test matches in India. To me, was having a rest. So I think it was that attitude, along with that sort of training, that added physical strength, but also mental strength, and then that allowed me to get through. So one was a combination of really working hard, working harder than anyone else off the field, and I think that held me in good stead on the field. So yeah, it comes back to what you're prepared to do. Being a fast bowler is the toughest part of the game. The stresses we put on our bodies every single ball you bowl. Some say over 7 times your body weight goes through your front foot every ball you bowl. So it is quite an unnatural action. So you've either got to improve your action, to refine it, as we say, so you're less chance of being injured, or improve your strength so that you can cope with that day in, day out. And so that's what I did. I had a fairly good action, fairly stress-free action, but I worked as hard as I could off the field. A lot of people telling me I was training too hard, but that training held me in good stead, and from then on, I was rarely injured. I did have bone spurs on my ankle from just bowling, probably year after year. I had them removed, and then treading on a ball in 05 and doing my ankle had a big impact. But again, it just shows about the other thing was having the right people around you. Our physio at that time, Errol Orcott, I'd fully ruptured 2 ligaments and a bit of bone damage on the inside of my ankle. Normally a 6 to 8 week injury minimum. He started physio straight away, icing 24/7, physio 24/7. I played a test match a week later. So it's about attitude, what you're prepared to do to strengthen yourself up mentally and physically. And secondly, it's about having the right people around you as well to allow you to go out there and achieve what you want. So, it comes back to the individual themselves, and that's what we try to tell our young bowlers. What are you prepared to do to achieve what you want to achieve? And that's the question we ask.
Green light.
Vasant?
Glenn, would you like to share a fond memory of Warnie with us?
Yeah, no, it's been a pretty tough year, hasn't it? We just get through 2 years of COVID, and this year, to lose 3 really close friends of mine, firstly in Rod Marsh and Shane, both passed away on the same day, is incredible. Was so just really tough. And then Andrew Simons recently. Warnie was one of the most amazing guys I've ever met. He was just a normal bloke like the rest of us, but he just lived this extraordinary life. Off the field, he got himself into a bit of trouble, but on the field, he was the ultimate competitor. He loved the challenge, that one-on-one challenge that you get from bowling to a batsman, bowling to the best batsman. Off the field, he loved poker as well because it's a one-on-one battle. So he always loved that. And I remember we just announced our retirements in 06-07 Ashes series, and it was the Boxing Day test at the MCG, and that's Shane's home ground. It was capacity ground. Capacity stadium was full. It was 95 plus thousand people there. Warnie was on 699 test wickets, and he was bowling to Andrew Strauss, England captain. And I remember I was fielding at mid-on, and he comes over to me and he goes, "I'm just going to keep it tight for an over or so, and then next over I'm going to keep it. I'm going to toss one up. Andrew Strauss, he's going to try to slog sweep me, and I'm going to bowl him through the gate." And I said, "Sounds like a pretty good plan to me, Shane." So, and that was Warnie. He just knew the game so well. He just loved that competition, but he could execute a plan really well. And so he'd set Andrew Strauss up. And so he kept it tight for the over. Next over, kept a couple of balls tight. And then he tosses one up. And I'm not sure if Andrew Strauss was listening into our conversation or not. But Strauss, he didn't try to slog sweep him, but he tried to whip him through mid-wicket. And the ball bounced, turned back, and he bowled him through the gate. And then off Shane was. He was running around. The crowd was going off. 700 test wickets. Absolutely incredible, but that was Shane. He just knew the game so well. He loved that competition, and he could execute what he wanted. So he was an amazing guy to have at the other end. I thank him for a lot of my wickets. He always said he thanked me for 1 or 2 of his, which I thought was really nice. But he was an amazing guy, and to lose him at such a young age of 52, it's been a pretty horrible year. But anyone who saw the memorial they had for him at the MCG, I think that changed a lot of people's minds. They didn't realise what Shane did behind the scenes that wasn't publicised, what he gave back to the community, and the humility that he actually had. And to me, a true character of, a great person, whether it's sport, any other field, is humility. And, so he'll be sorely missed. I still don't think I've come to terms with it, but he was a very special individual, but he had that humility, and he was just a really good human being.
Good evening, sir. My question goes to Bharat, Arun. Mr. Bharat, Arun. Umran Malik, Prasidh Krishna and Avesh Khan look to be the new face of Indian fast bowling. How do you think India can nurture them to become the next Brett Lee?
Well, I think it's extremely exciting. New generation of fast bowlers have inspired these young fast bowlers to come up. As we rightly said, we were discussing today, you need to, once you have identified them, I think it's important that you, develop them physically and give them the necessary inputs, the right inputs, so that they evolve over a period of time.
Glenn, thank you for being here. We love Australian cricket. Just wanted to hear your views on the Aussie coaching methodology, right? We've heard a lot of views on the Bob Simpson method, the Jeff Marsh method, and later on the Buchanan method, right? And a lot of your mates have written books with different views on Buchanan methods. We've heard a lot about the Outback trip which you guys went. It's from a cricket fan perspective, it's great. What are your views on that?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think a coach has to look at the team that they have and how to get the best out of them. I think back to when Alan Border took over as captain and along with Bob Simpson brought Australia up from, a fairly average team to a pretty good team. So it's about the attitude that they impart, the plan that they look to do, and then how you improve that team and leave them in a better position. I think Bob Simpson was all about, training hard, about improving our fielding. So he did a lot of high catches and a lot of ground fielding. He felt that was a big area. So identifying an area to improve in. And then the team itself, improved and got better and better and probably needed more a manager rather than a coach itself. Then we saw what happened with the Australian team over in South Africa, and then Justin Langer came on board. JL's, I think, two big words were discipline and respect, bringing it back to the game and sort of, bringing the public, improving the public opinion of the team and how the boys were playing. So, I think the Australian way and the Australian culture has always been we play hard in the middle, but we play fair. And I think that's what the boundary that was crossed in South Africa. So it was just about getting it back. So to me, that's what it's about. Just being a coach. It's what you bring individually to the team. And we've spoken about it here before. It's not just what you bring for them as cricketers. It's what you bring to improve them as young adults, as people. And all that is very important. So as humility, respect, discipline, but then going out there and backing yourself and playing an entertaining form of the game. So, when you've got a really good team of individuals with a really good captain, then it's just about the coach sort of managing and providing an environment for those guys to perform at their best. So that's the way I view the captaincy. I think Australian cricket's been held in fairly high regard for quite some time, and I think that's why a lot of Australian coaches have coached other teams around the world. I think a lot of other teams are starting to catch up in the way they do things. The NCA, the way the academies, things are put in place. Australia, probably one of the first countries to do that, and I think every other country's caught up, and maybe some of them's even overtaken where Australia is. So I think that's what held Australian coaches in high regard in the past. We'll see what the future holds as well.
Very good afternoon. My question is to Glenn, sir. So other than speed and strength, what are the other skill-based fitness components that you would look into before you bowl with pure confidence?
Sorry, what was that?
Along with speed and strength, what are
Yep.
the other fitness-based skill components that you would look into before you bowl with pure confidence?
Yeah. Being a fast bowler, as we've gone through, you've got to be fit, you've got to be strong, you've got to have the skill, you've got to have the attitude. But this day and age, in the old days, a fast bowler could be just a fast bowler. Not anymore. You've got to work on your batting. You've got to work on your fielding. And at the end of the day, if you've got a fast bowler that's in competition with another fast bowler, the difference is going to be their fielding and their batting. So it's not about just being one-dimensional anymore. You've got to look at all these different categories, and especially when there's so much T20 cricket around, you've got to be able to perform the three equally as well. So not only do we focus on them being a fast bowler, okay, how do we improve their fielding, their catching, their ground fielding, their speed to the ball, their anticipation, and then batting, getting in, having a strong defence, being able to play some shots, these sort of things as well. So it's about being an all-round cricketer, as we said, being an all-round person. That's what we try to help out where we can as well.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Good afternoon, sir. My question is to you, Arun sir. As a coach, how do you build a bridge between learning skills and enhancing the fitness of a player?
I think, first of all, coaching is about building a relationship, understanding each other, understanding what a player requires. And also, it's about discussing with the player as to where he stands realistically in terms of your skill and in terms of your fitness. And if you can devise a plan and set down the process for him to buy into it, then the entire process starts after that.
The lady in red? Yeah. The last question.
So do you think it's a generation thing? The younger players are not able to handle the pressure, or do you think this is a neglected area? What is it that coaches can do to address? What do you see as a coach? Because you've been through your own, set of injuries. You've spoken a lot about mental strength in your talk. But nowadays, players are talking about mental health issues. So what is your take?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think maybe in the past it was probably neglected a little bit. We're taught to. I was born and bred in a small country town on a farm in Australia, where if you had an issue or a problem, you didn't discuss it with anything. You just handled it, and I think that's probably the wrong way to go about it. It's about talking about our issues. And there was a few times in the Australian team when I was struggling a little bit, and I kept it to myself. And then I ended up sitting down with, say, Adam Gilchrist. And we got talking, and I actually mentioned it, and then he mentioned he was feeling the same way. So it's about discussing it, I think, and not keeping it within. And it is something that has been spoken about a lot more, and I think there are some issues. There are some serious mental health issues out there that need to be addressed. But I don't like to see it as an excuse for people not to fully achieve something. Sometimes I worry about society. It's that we provide excuses why it's okay not to succeed. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think we should be providing examples and reasons why we keep pushing ourselves and to achieve what we want to achieve. So yes, mental health is an important part of it. It's something that we probably didn't speak about before, but it is something that's important, that we need to talk about. And if there are issues, then there's people around to come in and to help. And so it's not only being a mentally strong individual, but it's also about asking for help. Back home, I have a foundation, MeGrath Foundation. But guys, women are very good at looking after their health. Blokes are hopeless. We just, it'll be right. We'll get around to it. But that's not what it is. We should be, talking about our issues more, discussing it, and you realise then that it's not as big a problem. Suicides, other health issues, those things. If we talk about it more and we provide the right environment, the right people to help, then those things come down, and that's what it's about. So it is a different world. You know, we've got social media now that we never had. There's different pressures for young people coming through. So it's not so much about using it as an excuse. To me, it's about providing ways for young people and people in general to be more resilient, to know themselves better, to be able to access, help and have that support network to allow them to improve as people and to achieve what they want to achieve. So, yeah, it is different pressures now than what it was when I first played and when Bharat first played. But that's the way it is now, and we've got to move with the times. And as long as you've got those support structures in place and people can access them and they're prepared to talk, then hopefully it'll be an improvement across the board.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So we conclude the session. Thank you. Lovely conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.